Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a bilingual neurolinguistic programming and cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court-appointed and private, marriage and relationship coaching, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one sessions, both French or English, and also do group settings. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMV Therapy and Coaching Services at 301-325-1550, and our website can be found at lifecoach.drdanamzallag.com. Today, I'm very excited to have for our 10th and last episode of season 28, a very special guest and accountability coach, Robert Hunt. And just like every of my past episode, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Robert, the floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you, Dr. Dan. I'm really happy to be on the podcast with you. I am married to the most beautiful woman in any room. I have been married to my beautiful wife, Kathy, for 27 years. She is truly my best friend. And we're enjoying life here in the northern Texas area, just north of Dallas in a little town called Frisco. I grew up in Southern California, but I moved here in 2010. And we have two adult children, James and Lauren. And we've enjoyed raising them and watching them grow up to be great, great people. What I do for a living day to day is I help people create opportunities for accountability through CEO peer groups that I run here in the DFW area. And I supplement that as an executive coach to help them reach their goals.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Robert. I really appreciate it, especially right before the 4th of July weekend that is coming up this week. So, let's talk about accountability. Now, a lot of people are, what I've noticed in my practice, they do not want to take responsibility for their action. They have the tendency to be able to point finger at person A,
Yeah.
person B, all the way to person Z, and tell that it is because of them that they have not reached the level of
Mm.
say, success in their lives. So when you say about taking accountability, to what extent do you define that?
Yeah. The simplest definition of accountability itself is just you own it. It's yours. And so what we do as playing the role of a victim in our life, and nobody wants to play a victim. They don't go, I want to be a victim, but they end up acting like a victim by the things they do. And they just feel natural because we've done them our whole lives. We're not even aware anymore. What the first thing we do when we realize we have accountability for something is we blame. And if that doesn't work, we make excuses. If that doesn't work, we say, well, I just can't do anything about it. And if that doesn't work, we just wait and hope that maybe it'll get better next year. And it doesn't, it gets worse. And we've seen that in our own personal lives. We saw it in our marriage and our finances. And we've realized that when you take accountability for everything in your life, you gain the power to change anything in your life. And we've seen that in our own lives. I've seen it with my clients as I help them take accountability for their lives and make the changes they really want.
So when you accept what's coming your way in terms of either karma or the outcome of lack of accountability of your actions and behaviors, um, do people kind of like wonder what best option is there to be able to start making the changes in their lives, which means that, okay, I am responsible for what happened. How do I change it? But if they had the actual solution,
Yeah.
what would they screw up in the beginning for?
Well, I think part of the problem is we don't recognize the difference between being responsible and being accountable. Responsible is something went wrong and I took ownership and I fixed it. Accountable is saying, I know there's a problem that could happen, therefore I'm going to do this to avoid it. So let's say you have anger management issues and you have people that are always pissing you off everywhere you go. Then, if you haven't started every day with a time of gratitude and talking to the Lord and saying, God, thank you for the life I have, my beautiful wife, my kids, I live in America, and just taking a grip on the reality of where you're at, you could leave the house already angry before you even get in the car. So, to be proactive in wanting to live the life you want, you have to do something proactively. It's not enough to just deal with it when it gets up in your face. By then, you're already mad. So you have to start doing things proactively to create a world where you avoid the problems. That's the difference between accountability and responsibility.
But unfortunately for us, Robert, we do not have a crystal ball. So, okay, we go with the proactive approach of trying to um, act before we react. And that is based on past, I would say, experiences or trauma that we have dealt with. Now,
Right.
obviously, every circumstances that comes our way differs from one to the other. Now, of course, some show some similarity between each other, but then again, how can we look into the future that is so uncertain?
I would argue that most things are the same. There's a really cool book written by Ray Dalio, 13th richest man in America. And he writes this book called Principles, where he says he figured out in life that pretty much everything's the same version of the same problem, just a little different. And so he learned the cadence and the tools to deal with things when they came his way. And that's what made him so successful because not everything is a unique problem. For example, if I'm driving into a Starbucks to get something to drink and the line's really bad, the line's always going to be long. If it's not long, that's the abnormal. So if we gear up our mind for expectations of that, hey, in life you have to wait. Hey, in life you have to be kind. Why not take it as a moment to talk to somebody and just say, how's your day going? So if we can just realize that everything that comes our way is probably just a tiny version of everything we've dealt before, and we've successfully dealt with everything before. Our track record is 100% successful in everything we've done. We're still alive. Maybe you didn't get the result you wanted. Maybe it was hard, but you won. You succeeded 100% of the time. If you're listening to this podcast, you have succeeded 100% of the time in not dying because of the decisions you made. I think you should celebrate that. But you've got to proactively gear up for the fact that life is going to have challenges and you've already dealt with this. So stay calm.
Okay, well then let's put this in like people who are dealing with no mental illnesses or no struggles in their life or no childhood trauma or anything else that actually compromise their limited belief or thoughts that they have about themselves. That in itself cannot allow them to be able to progress in a, I would say, normal way. So those who are actually dealing with those struggles, how can they overcome it?
Well, I think that again is back to the proactive nature of accountability. If someone has had trauma in their life, they should go and get help in a proactive way. You don't wait till your spouse is divorcing you to figure out, yeah, I guess I should go see a therapist or a counselor. You proactively do it. When I was a kid, my dad was an angry, mean person. He beat us and he beat my mom in front of us my whole youth. And I could have grown up to be an angry person and beat my wife and my kids, but I knew that's not how I wanted to be. And so I gave all those hurts and fears and pains to the Lord and asked Him to heal my heart. But you have to do things proactively because although you may have been victimized, you do not have to live as a victim.
Well, that's actually a very deep, I would say, thought that you just shared. So, okay, so let's go with the other part of accountability of people assuming or just accepting, or is it really accepting what's coming your way that you become more accountable?
I think you're preparing for it. That's where you're becoming accountable. I know every day I leave this house, something's going to go wrong. Of traffic, car won't work, someone will show up late at the office, a client will call with a problem. Every day, something's going to go wrong. And for you not to create a world of anticipating the challenges of life is foolishness. And so you have to gear up to say, how do I learn to be patient? How do I learn to plan my time well? How do I learn to build a little bit of room in my schedule so that I'm not panicked? One of the problems I see with business owners is they load up their world so full that if one thing goes wrong, it totally derails their day. And things always go wrong. And so, since it always goes wrong, you're being a fool if you don't proactively create a world that has some room for the unexpected. That's called margin. And if you have margin in your life, when someone calls in sick, things don't fall apart. When a client calls angry, you don't lose control. That's again the proactive nature, knowing that every day there will be a challenge.
So is it like, would you consider this as just when you create a business plan for a new idea or a new venture that you have, even though the business plan requires you to be able to predict the, financials for the next 2 years,
Right.
3 years,
Right.
whatever it is. But we all know that those numbers are erroneous. I mean, there's never really going to be something that is going to be accurate. So is it the same thing that you just can anticipate, but yet when things come, you start tweaking it so it could actually
Yeah.
adapt to the existing environment?
I think it's interesting what you pointed out that in business we create business plans and someone will give you a loan at a bank based on a model that says here's what I'm gonna do, here's what I'm gonna sell, here's my profit, here's my customer, and you get a loan for that. Someone believes your story enough to give you money. We should do the exact same thing with our marriage and with our health and with our faith and with our children. Here's what I want my son to grow up to love Jesus and to be a godly man and to treat his wife with love and respect and raise his kids to be great children. That doesn't happen just because I feed him. That happens because I teach him how to start his own business. That's because we read the Bible together, because we go through hardships honestly and transparently and let him know, hey, mom and dad are really sad today because grandpa died. And we be honest with our kids about our journey so they're ready to face the struggles in life. Again, it's that proactive nature of looking at things like a business plan, knowing things are going to derail, knowing someone's going to get cancer, knowing that we're going to lose our job. You need to build a life that is ready for the challenges, just like a business has to.
Interesting. Here's what really makes me wonder, Robert, is that we live our life, we're all swamped, or I would say, like a tidal wave of information that comes our way from social media, fake news, left and right, and so on and so forth.
Sure.
And now with everything that's going on about people just like the so-called influencers out there giving us some piece of information, then the other opposite piece of information. How can people really believe in anything anymore? And when they don't
That's
believe in
great.
anything anymore, that start making them doubt about their own actions and thoughts.
I don't know. I don't know how people can believe anything anymore. Really, I don't. I think that on both sides they exaggerate or just flat out lie. But I think uh, overloading yourself with input is a decision you need to not make. Proactively, I need to limit how much input comes into my brain. Studies will tell you how many thousands of inputs you get every day that are advertising or marketing each day. And so, if you limit your social media, whatever side of the fence you walk on, you won't be pumped up with all the negative news from one side or the other. But if you spend a little bit of time to talk with a friend and care with them and to work out and to eat well and to get some rest and to have some fun, then you will have pouring into your body and your mind and your soul inputs that will offset all the negative stuff that comes out on social media. Check your screen time. If you're burning a couple hours a day on social media, you've got issues. And in whatever things you believe, good or bad, they're still going to overweigh you. The world is so broken. You're going to get all this negative input. Take a break. Go rest. Go talk to someone. Go listen to music. Enjoy your life. Don't let it overwhelm you. I think that's how you have to deal with that proactively.
So, do you think that the philosophy of Stoicism with the dichotomy of control, where it says that you should focus on the things that you can control and let go of the things that you
I
can't?
love that. I
Uh,
love that you're bringing up stoicism. I love that. Yes, I am a huge stoic.
okay. So, when it comes to accountability here, um, are we accountable for the things that we can or can't control?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. We are not in control as much as you think you are. There's very little you are in control of. And yes, you are accountable for what you can control. I can't control if someone's mean to me, or at least I perceive they're being mean to me. But I can control how I respond because they may not be mean to me. They just may be honest, and that may hurt my feelings. And therefore, I feel like they're being mean to me. And I don't control anything that comes at me, but I do control how I respond to it. I think that's a full time job right there. You just work on you being the best version of you, and you just work on how you see things and respond to them. That is a full-time job. And you will find very quickly there's very little you control other than how you respond to what comes at you.
So in the business field, when it comes to accountability versus in your personal life, is there a lot of similarity, or do you have to basically dissociate yourself from your personal to professional?
Now, I think you should be one person everywhere. One of the stresses that causes us, and it really does affect our mental health, is this mindset that we have to be someone different at work than we do in the rest of our lives. As a
Mhm.
matter of fact, I think you should be one person everywhere. If you go to church and you're this really amazing, loving, kind human, and then you walk out to the parking lot and go eat somewhere and you turn into a tyrant, or you go to work and you turn into a rude, demanding person, you should be one person everywhere. Otherwise, you're building this internal stress that I've got to amp up to be a jerk at work, or I can't get things done, or I can't be caring to people because they'll take advantage of me. If you're being multiple people, all it does is create confusion inside of you, and that disconnect causes stress. Learn to be the best version of yourself everywhere. Start with you evaluating, who do I want to be? What do I want to look like? How do I want to roll? And then be that person at work and be that person with your friends and as neighbors. That will build calm and peace in your life because you don't have to learn to be a variety of people, just one person everywhere.
Can I interject on that one, Robert?
Yeah.
So when you look at people that are high placed in their organization, either CEOs, C-suite people, and And when they have to be very, very strong-minded individuals to be able to manage a multinational organization, they cannot behave nice in the same way that they have to basically treat their wife or their kids. They have to be strong. They have to be very persistent. So I think they do have to have some form of different personality, because you cannot treat your wife as an employee when you are a CEO of an organization. So you have to basically separate yourself from the two entities.
Well, if you have a wife and kids, you will know that there are many times where I am negotiating with my wife and children to get what I need to get done in life. And I do think that you can actually be the CEO of one way all the time. One of my clients is the CEO of Coca-Cola here in Dallas. He's a great man, Jean-Claude Tussaud. He leads the company here in Dallas, and he has 8,000 employees. He is one guy everywhere, but he's not a demanding tyrant. He's kind and caring to his employees at work, and he makes really hard decisions in a global environment that affects stock prices. He's in a very demanding role, but he still is kind and caring to not only his family, but to the employees that work with him. I think you can be one person everywhere. You just have to be that person consistently. And if you're yelling at employees at work, you're doing it wrong. That's not the way to behave. You don't have to yell at people to get things done, but you do have to have clarity, and you have to have consistency, and you have to have discipline. Those things are just as important at home with your kids and your spouse as it is at work.
That for that I agree. I mean, looking at a different angle definitely creates a different perspective, as you said, Robert. And I think that when it comes to taking either responsibility or accountability, even though you did mention the difference between both, I think overall we learn from mistakes, and well, most do. Some actually, some actually repeat those mistakes over and over again, and they wonder
Yes.
why they're not expecting different outcome. But overall, is there any specific, I would say, recommendation that you can let our listeners know about if someone do lack accountability? What would be the first few steps for them to be able to change the course of the path of their lives?
Yeah, great question. In our book, we put a survey and we want you to declare to yourself, how satisfied are you in your personal and professional life? So the starting point of anything is to say, am I happy with where I'm at? Am I doing what I want? Am I living the life I really want? And in most people's cases, they're not in many areas of their life. And then the question is why? And that's when you realize that you may be playing the victim by blaming or making excuses or saying you can't or waiting and hoping. So then you have to declare to yourself, look, nobody cares. Nobody cares if I'm miserable, fat, unhappy in my marriage, angry at God, angry at my kids. Nobody cares unless you care enough to do something about it. So when you do care, then there's a world of people who will rally around you to help you. And the way that you really get this done is by creating vulnerability in your life. So people come to you, Dr. Dan, because they want help. You're not fixing their life. You're helping them figure out what they want, and you're
Correct.
helping them get clear, and you're helping them get going. And that's what you need is you need real vulnerability where you tell someone, I'm not happy with my life, and here's why. And that person helps you get clarity and think about it and get started. And so by declaring your issues in this survey that we have in the book or online, you then share it with somebody. Share it with a professional like Dr. Dan, or share it with some friend that you really see they have their life together. Don't share it with your knuckleheads you hang out at the bar with. Share it with a buddy who's got a good marriage. Share it with a buddy who you know and trust, and let them encourage you to be the best version of yourself. But it really does require real vulnerability.
But doesn't vulnerability equals weakness? And in our society, we have seen such a huge change between women and men, where now women are wearing the pants in the family and the men are acting like women. So,
Well, I think the women have to wear the pants in the family because the men don't act like men.
well,
And the
yeah,
men who are
okay.
acting like a man, they don't need a wife to have to wear the pants.
Okay, I see what you mean.
And I'm not saying my wife knows who she is and I know who I am. God created us very differently. We are equal, but we're different. And so one of my jobs is to love her and take care of her like Christ loved the church and died for the church. I'm supposed to love my wife that way, not boss her around, not tell her what to do, but to fight for her and to win her heart and let her know she is treasured. And so being vulnerable is not weakness because everybody knows what's going on anyway. You're just admitting it. So all you're showing is you're not a fool and you're not a liar. So by being vulnerable, you're not saying you can't handle it. You're saying I own it. It's mine and I'm going to fix it. And here's what I'm going to do. Now I'm inviting someone in because you're smart enough to let someone help you. It's when someone says, I need help, they feel weak. But if you say, I want help, it's different because I chose it and I'm doing it because I'm smart. And I'm going to Dr. Dan because Dan can help me. And I'm smart enough to know he can help me. So I'm letting him help me. That shows how smart and how in control you are because you're inviting someone in to be better.
Okay, but then doesn't vulnerability or accepting, or not accepting, but being accountable, doesn't it create a lot of fear in people? Because if they screw up, people will not trust them the same way as before, and they will not be given the same amount of opportunities. So that's why they're not accepting or being accountable.
Well, I think they're seeing that either way. If you're not doing a good job, everybody knows it. You're not hiding it. No one doesn't not see it. But what it does is it allows you to be real. When someone pretends something didn't happen, they think you're a liar. But if
Mhm.
you admit, you know what, I don't really know what I'm doing here, but it is my job. So what do you know that could help me? You're inviting someone in to get knowledge. The CEOs that I work with here in Dallas, they don't know everything. Who could know everything about the things in business? The world's constantly changing. AI, cybersecurity, the law, HR law, financial rules. There's no CEO out there who knows everything. But a smart leader surrounds himself with great people who do know the answers. And so if you're pretending that you know everything, you're a fool or a liar. And so
Mhm.
what you do want to do is invite people in. This is where vulnerability comes in. Susan, you're super smart. Help me with this. I want your help. Joe, you're really good at this. You've done this before. I'm going to ask you to do this because I want your help. I'm not needing it. I'm not weak. I'm smart.
So it's just about what word you use, right?
That helps a lot. But at the end of the day, if you say, I want your help, and then you micromanage them, you've ruined it. You have to learn how to create teams that are empowered by giving them a clear vision of what it looks like to do the job right. And then you're not being a fool by poor delegation skills. That's a different topic. But if
Yes.
you're going to delegate, you've got to delegate completely and walk away from it.
Beautiful. So what is the second step to get to feeling and being more accountable for your actions?
So the first step is you take the satisfaction assessment and you declare where you're not happy and why. And when you realize that you're making excuses and blaming and saying you can or you're waiting and hoping, then you go and you say, I'm going to change that. And the back half of the book explains the process of changing that. The first thing you do is you acknowledge the reality. The reality in our story was we owed $90,000 in debt. It didn't include the house or the cars, and there was no way we were going to get out of debt. So the acknowledged reality was we had equity in our home and we could sell our house and start over. The second thing you do after you acknowledge reality is you embrace the suck. It sucked, but we sold our house and we started over. And we hated losing this beautiful home we had, but it was the option to get our lives back under control.
Mhm.
And after you embrace the suck, you find the solution, which is us getting a real estate agent, getting the house ready to sell, going through the process. And the fourth step is make it happen. And in that process of making it happen, we wanted to quit so many times. We didn't want to sell our house. We loved our house and we didn't want to move. And it was very scary in a lot of ways and very sad. So we invited people in. We were vulnerable. We said, look, we're struggling with this. We want you to know what we're doing. We want you to pray for us and we want you to challenge us and encourage us. Because there was multiple times we're like, forget it. I don't want to do this. I
Yeah.
don't want to go this journey. But even though the both of us were on the same page, we still struggled. Inviting people into our struggle was what helped us get it done. And that's the process. Acknowledge reality, embrace the suck, find a solution, and make it happen.
That is actually an interesting analogy and metaphor that you just used, Robert, because I just sold my house as well. Not for the same reason as the dead, but for other personal reasons. But is it possible, Robert, that when you look at struggles, when you look at difficult times in someone's life, um, is it possible that harder the struggle is, and when you do find solution, you're going to have a better outcome?
I don't know if it measures how hard the struggle is because if you're addicted to porn,
Yeah.
that could be a really hard struggle for you. I'm not addicted to porn, so I can walk away from that. So if porn comes up on my computer, I just move on. So I don't know how to measure hard, but I think every journey we're on, whether it's dealing with rebellious children or an addiction or just financial bad decisions, every struggle we're going to face has its ups and downs, but you can conquer it if you own it, you have the opportunity to face it and chase it. And we're still working through years of bad decisions as we move forward in our lives, but we own it. and there's encouragement because we know we're on a path to make it what we want. It'll be hard. It's going to be hard for everybody in there, whatever issue you face, but you can do it. You really can.
So, but if you feel or if you find yourself in a comfort zone or like in a cocoon, do you have to start saying to yourself, no, this, I cannot live this way. I need to really challenge myself to be able to find new and bigger opportunities. So when
Well,
you find yourself in that zone, how can you get out of it?
comfort zone's another word for fear. We
Okay.
like the word comfort zone because it sounds better. If you said, "Well, I'm really scared," someone would go, "Geez, man up." But if you say comfort zone, they go, "Oh yeah, yeah, I don't have that's out of my comfort zone too." And everyone likes that word. But comfort zone is fear, and the only thing that gets rid of fear is love. And so if you're struggling with fear or your comfort zone, you need to understand that you are loved. And that love will inspire you because love is patient and kind and gentle and it looks out for other people's needs. And the reality is, it's going to be a struggle to live life no matter what. But I don't want to live as a victim. I want to have the opportunity to pursue the life I really want. And when the pain of where you are
Mhm.
is worse than the pain of where you're going to go, you will change. And so sometimes that's people hitting rock bottom. Sometimes it's just realizing I need to sell my house and start over. But you get to make that decision and you get to own it. And that to me is real power.
It's interesting what you say about hitting rock bottom because you know that when you do hit rock bottom, the only way is up.
Yeah,
Right?
that's true.
So I
That's
think this
true.
is how, and this is why I said about the hard struggle, because then you wonder, is it really the rock bottom or is there further down that I could go? And from that
Yeah.
forward, you know that, okay, now it's time to go up because there's no other way.
That's true. I don't want to wait till I hit rock bottom and everything. This is again, this is why you allow yourself vulnerability. Everyone has challenges, everybody. If you surround yourself with people who genuinely care about you and will be honest with you, you can get things done and change your life without hitting rock bottom. But if you want to hide everything and hold on to your secret problems and not let anybody know, you can own your problems all the way to the bottom. I would rather have people in my life who care about me and will speak truth in love to me so I can avoid hitting rock bottom and pursue the life I really want.
Beautiful. So okay, before we conclude the podcast there, Robert, where can people find you and seek your services as an accountability coach?
Yeah, I'm on the DFW area here, so you can find me through the website. You go to nobodycaresbook.com and
Mhm.
our contact information's in there. I also, for my CEO business, it's the website refdallas.com. Those are my two websites. You can order your book at nobodycaresbook.com. You can contact me about my services at Ref Dallas.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, Robert, that is all the time that we have for today's podcast. Again, thank you sincerely for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us. And we all appreciate your participation and willingness to share your remarkable, inspiring advice with our large and loyal audience. Now, to all of our million of listeners out there, we hope that you've enjoyed today's episode as much as we did. Now, we're excited for what's ahead in season 29 of the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan podcast, featuring a lineup of incredible guests with powerful stories that will continue to uplift and inspire all of you. Now, here are some concluding words of wisdom. Accountability is the foundation of growth and integrity. When we own our actions, we take control of our lives and step into our true power. Blame and excuses may feel easier, but they keep us stuck. True strength lies in facing our choices, learning from them, and doing better. Holding others accountable isn't about punishment, it's about respect, honesty, and growth. A culture of accountability builds trust, responsibility, and lasting changes. Let's rise by being responsible, not by running from truth. Growth begins when excuses end. My name is Dr. Dan Amzallag, and you may all keep pursuing your amazing journey in life.